to take, then they should engage with them. There has always to be a political solution to any insurgency and any conflict, but finding the people who are willing to do that is a difficult job, and we have also to, I think, accept that there will be some people who will always be irreconcilable, and that will continue to provide a threat to the stability of the country.
Does that answer your question? You want to come back on that?
I think the war on terror is surely broader than just Afghanistan. Richard Perle made the point that Al-Qaeda still poses a significant threat across the world. If that's the case, then surely it's broader than Afghanistan, and therefore what are we going to do to talk to Al-Qaeda operatives that perhaps aren't operating in the northwest of Pakistan or Afghanistan and maybe somewhere else?
Tariq.
Look, don't confuse two things. The actual Al-Qaeda grouping itself, according to virtually every report, public, unofficial, that one hears of, is reduced, greatly reduced in size. So don't conflate that with the insurgency in Afghanistan. It's not the same thing. The insurgency in Afghanistan now includes not just some remnants of the old Taliban, but many, many new people, which is why people call it the neo-Taliban. And, you know, this is not talked about much in polite society, but over the last 6 years, the NATO governments, some of them, have been negotiating and discussing with these people and asking them whether they're prepared to join a national government, to which they reply, we will, but only after all foreign troops have left, A. Secondly, you cannot have a stable government in Afghanistan, in my opinion, unless some of the neighboring countries are involved, both financially, economically, to try and guarantee the stability. And whether you like it or not, this includes Pakistan, this includes Iran, this includes Russia, this includes China. These are countries that have to be involved, and there should be a withdrawal of Western troops. Otherwise, it's a disaster story. You have a corrupt government which represents nobody. Its people are targeted at will by the insurgents, regularly, all over the country. And everyone knows that militarily this war cannot be won. So a political solution is necessary, and the political solution which should happen should involve the neighboring powers to create a national government. This country has been at war now since 1979. Right. 10 years of the Russians, then civil war in Afghanistan between rival factions, and now 10 years of NATO. Take pity on them.
The woman there in the fourth row from the back.
And what's just been said is basically that there needs to be negotiations. You know, you shooting terrorists and looking for the Taliban to destroy them. You know, there's the problem of actually increasing the problem because of the hatred and the revengeful feelings that come from loved ones being killed. You know, we can dismiss what they're saying. I'm not saying I agree with the behaviour at all, because I don't. But at the end of the day, this is the way they are. And at the end, if we don't try to basically get past that and actually try to get the people talking that can, like in the Middle East, what do the Middle East want in general? You know, do they want the bringing down of the Taliban? Do they want to come against bad Western feelings? We've got to establish how the Middle East feel about it and what they feel that can be done about it.
Pick it up.
Yeah. Can I just first of all thank the gentleman who spoke before you did. I'm from a service family, and I want to thank you for the service you give to this country. Because this is a voluntary military, and you do what our policymakers have created to the situation. So I'm very grateful to you. I sit here and listen to all of us. The initial question was, what is the world like after 9/11? What kind of world do we have? This is an example of the kind of world that we have. We have a world in which things have been conflated, convoluted, confused, and agendas have happened, and it's a very simple thing. And I remember something vividly, and this goes back to what this lady was saying about talking. I remember President Bush in the early days after 9/11 using words like crusade, and he was stopped from doing that. I remember people bringing God into this. On the Christian side, we've created a world in which It is an against or for world. There is no middle ground. We never ever hear from the people in Israel who are working for peace. We never hear from the people in Palestine, in Palestine working for peace. It's the other sides who get the publicity. And your question goes back to that. There are people who want to talk and they don't get the airtime. It's as simple as that.
Okay. And
are we realistically able to solve the problems in Afghanistan and the growing problems in Pakistan by 2015?
By the date when the troops are withdrawing? Yeah. Liam Fox.
Yeah.
Well,
you said originally that there shouldn't be any deadline, didn't you?
Yes, but President Karzai said that he wanted to have the security of his own country under his own forces by 2015. And if you have a sovereign government in Afghanistan, you have to recognise and accept that they will have to ultimately have control over what they want. And Tariq said...
But does that mean you're very sceptical about the idea of a deadline?
No, I think it's very achievable for a number of reasons. And Tariq said that we should give poor Afghanistan a chance. And he's quite right that no one under 30 in Afghanistan can remember anything other than conflict. And we've taken a lot of things to Afghanistan, but one of the things, and if you go to talk to people in the markets of Helmand, they'll tell you that the one thing that we actually have brought is some hope, because they have a chance to choose their own governance for the first time. 5 times more children are in school than there were 5 years ago. 14 times more people access to health care. What we are actually doing is very positive, and sometimes I think we should take a bit more pride in what our country is actually doing and look at the good things that we're actually achieving for people. And one of the other great things that our military has been doing is helping to train the Afghan National Police, the Afghan National Army, so that they can take control of the security of their own country, so that we can leave without leaving behind the sort of security vacuum into which groups like Al-Qaeda would be drawn. So just for once, I think we should say thank you to what our aid workers are doing, thank you to what our military are doing, because they are actually changing the face of that country and giving people a chance that neither their parents nor grandparents ever had.
The Russians used to say exactly that. The woman
in the front there.
I totally agree with what you're saying, but the fact is that thousands and millions of innocent people have died due to the whole blowback effect. It's ridiculous, and what is being actually done to prevent more people dying? Innocent lives have died through the whole 9/11 procedure. What about the people in Afghanistan, all the countries that we are invading and totally destroying? The whole families, lives, and everything has been ruined by that. What is being done to prevent that from happening again?
We've only a few minutes left. I want to take just a slightly different area from Duncan Ayres. We did mention it briefly. Duncan Ayres' question, please.
Could the Arab Spring have happened without...
Sorry, fire away again.
Could the Arab Spring have happened without the war in Iraq?
Could the Arab Spring have happened without the war in Iraq? Richard Perle.
I don't think so. I think what the war in Iraq did ultimately was demonstrate that even a figure like Saddam Hussein, who Iraqis thought was there forever, could be removed. The world saw, including the Arab world, they saw people coming out of the voting booths in Iraq with purple thumbs. And in fact, in the immediate aftermath of that, you had an uprising in Lebanon, which unfortunately ran out of steam. I think it was an inspiration. It was a demonstration that just because you live in an Arab country, just because you are ruled by an Arab dictator, you don't have to accept that as your inevitable future.
Okay.
And we now see the Arab world rising up against its dictators.
You've sounded a little sceptical about the war in Iraq, David Miliband, and one or two things you've said. Are you sceptical about the effect of that war, and do you agree the Arab Spring couldn't have happened without it?
It's very tempting for people in my position to say that we'll add to the positive side of the balance sheet that the Arab Spring wouldn't have happened without the Iraq war. It's tempting, but in all honesty, I can't say that. I mean, it would make life much easier. I voted for the war in Iraq. I read Hans Blix's 174-page report documenting the WMD that hadn't come. But I have to recognise today that the list of positives, which include Saddam gone, which include the Kurds safe, which include Gaddafi giving up his 3,000 chemical bombs, those positives are outweighed by the longer list of negatives. So now history is still being made in Iraq. History is still being made in Iraq. And as I say, it would make life easy for me if I could say yes. But the truth about the Arab Spring is that its seeds are deep in Arab society. They're deep among Egyptians above all, who've seen their nation run in a kleptocratic and corrupt way, and national pride sunk. What should be the leader of the Arab world has been sunk. And that is not a Saddam Hussein issue. It's about people demanding universal rights, and that's what we should be standing up for.
And can I ask David a very short question? Yes. David, do you think the 31 million Iraqis who today live in a chaotic democracy would like to go back to where they were?
No one wants to go back to living under Saddam Hussein, but someone's going to shout out, what about those who are dead? But you know, and there has been massive loss of life. But even those Iraqis today, they want a different kind of liberation, is the truth. And I think we have to. I don't resile. I don't rewrite the history of what I voted for and how I did it and what I said. I try and explain how I came to those judgments. But I also
you think you made the right decisions?
On the evidence that was in front of me at the time, I had to make that decision.
Tariq,
Richard, look. Even The Economist, not a very radical mag, suggests that Iraq today, and I use its word, is a vicious clerical police state. And I think that's quite accurate. We have seen huge ethnic cleansing taking place. General Petraeus said a few weeks ago the war in Iraq isn't over. It's going to last for a long, long time. So I think we can't pretend that all is well. For me, what the Arab Spring revealed is that ultimately when a people in a country have had enough of whether it's a dictator or semi-democratic leader or whatever, and they decide to rise and get rid of him. And that is the important thing, and they got rid of him despite the fact that Mubarak was backed by the West, as we know, and paid by the West. And who can say that the same thing wouldn't have happened in Iraq? Who can say that? The Arab Spring proves to me the opposite. If it could happen in Egypt, it could have happened in Iraq.
All right. We're coming to the end. I'll just take, there are many people with their hands still up. The man in the check shirt there, and then briefly you, sir. Yes.
Well, I was just going to say that I think that the regimes in Libya and, where was the other place? Iraq. I think the dictators are more ruthless than Mubarak, personally. I think Mubarak was backed by the West. And Mubarak didn't try and stop the demonstrations in Egypt, but...
Okay, and a brief point from you, sir.
I think it's mad to talk about a safer Iraq, Afghanistan, and safer average British person when we've just screwed up a whole country called Pakistan. This is not Pakistan's war. Pakistan was never in this war. It's not a failed state. Labeling and branding a country as a failed state is a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what we've seen. And the lesson from the Arab Spring is that from the Iraq war, people learned that no matter how much you protest, your government is not going to listen to you. If the Arabs learned that, there would be no Arab Spring. They went 5 steps ahead.
Okay. We have to stop there, I'm afraid, because our hour is up. But thank you all very much. Apologies to those of you who still had your hands up. Just about question time. Next week we're going to be in Northern Ireland, from a city whose very name is the subject of controversy. You can either call it Londonderry or Derry. Whichever you call it, we'll be there. And the week after that we're going to be in Birmingham. It's the Liberal Democrat Conference. And if you want to join the audience for either of those programmes, Londonderry or Derry, so to speak, tomorrow, next week, and then Birmingham the week after, 0330 123 99 88. 0330 123 99 88. Call that number or go to our website. Thank you all, the panellists here and everybody who came to take part. From this edition of Question Time in London, good night.